The Costa Concordia is a stranded giant. Since Friday, the 13th of January, the stricken cruise liner has been lying aground off the Italian island of Giglio.
On behalf of the captain, to inform you that due to an electrical fault which is currently under control, we're currently in a blackout. Our technicians are working to resolve the situation and we'll inform you of developments as they occur. Thank you for your attention.
Around 9:30 p.m., an impact had shaken the ship just hours after it embarked on a Mediterranean cruise. The 4,200 people on board heard several contradictory announcements before the signal to abandon ship was given. As the ship continued to tilt, the evacuation began. Passengers and crew had to climb over the hull to reach the lifeboats. These aerial pictures of the evacuation were taken by the Italian Coast Guard. The Costa Concordia had run aground just 150 meters off Giglio. But not everyone made it to safety. The initial count was 3 dead and dozens still missing. This woman described how people were tripping over each other in panic. As the ship listed, water poured in. Another passenger said people were struck by flying objects as children cried. By daylight, the situation had become clearer. The Costa Concordia had struck a rock. The collision ripped a 70-meter gash in the hull. But why had the ship passed so close to the island and deviated from its authorized route? Attention focused on the boat's captain, Francesco Schettino. In an interview, he claimed the rock had not been marked on his nautical chart. That proved untrue, and police arrested him soon afterwards. He faces charges of involuntary manslaughter. The next day brought some good news. 2 survivors were rescued from the wreck unharmed. The couple from South Korea were on their honeymoon. Later, rescuers located another survivor trapped in the body of the ship. The injured crewman was lifted out by helicopter. But the rescue divers also found 2 bodies. Cabin by cabin, they combed the ship, at considerable risk to themselves, as Cosimo Nicastro, a Coast Guard commander, told the media. He pointed out that the ship was lying half submerged on a narrow ledge close to a steep drop of 70 meters. If the wreck were to move too close to the edge, it would spell danger for the divers and end the search for the missing. Soon, more information emerged about the cause of the collision. Captain Schettino allegedly sailed the ship so close to Giglio in order to greet the islanders and impress the passengers. Residents reported it wasn't the first time he'd done a sail past. On Monday, a team of Italian cave divers arrived in Giglio. The experts specialize in searches under extreme conditions. One of them explained how complex a search could be in such a huge ship. All the loose objects like tables, beds, or cupboards could pose a danger to the divers. Finding survivors here seemed like a hopeless task. 29 people were still missing. All the divers found was 1 body, bringing the death toll to 6. Then the weather turned bad. Rough seas were shifting the wreck closer to the edge of the ledge. The rescue work was temporarily halted, and the divers and firefighters were taken to safety. At this point, the captain was in prison on remand. New charges had emerged that he had been the first to leave the ship. On Tuesday, the search for the missing resumed. Rescuers set off explosives to make holes in the hull so as to get inside. There they found more bodies. The death toll rose to 11. Captain Schettino was taken for questioning. He admitted errors to the investigators, but denied that he had abandoned ship. But then a recording from the night of the disaster was released. In the radio conversation, a Coast Guard officer tells Schettino to return to the ship. Go back aboard and tell me how many people are still there, says the officer. Tell me how many children and women or people needing assistance are there. Schettino, you may have saved yourself, he says, but I'll make you pay. Go aboard, is that clear? On Tuesday, Schettino was released from jail, but placed under house arrest. Italian media reported extensively on the disaster. By midweek, 21 people were still missing. Relatives traveled to Giglio to monitor the search for their loved ones. Some expressed anger at the slow pace of search operations. This Peruvian woman was desperate for news of her sister, a crew member. An additional concern is occupying authorities. The Costa Concordia is carrying more than 2,000 tons of diesel oil. It could take weeks to pump it out. Barriers have been placed on the water in case of a leak. But if the wreck should sink and release its fuel, it could cause an environmental catastrophe. In one eerie moment, the Costa Concordia's sister ship sailed past the site of the wreck, filled to capacity with cruise passengers. On Thursday, Giglio held a ceremony to honor those who helped in the early hours of the rescue effort, such as parish members who housed survivors of the shipwreck. Local Bishop Guglielmo Borghetti came from the mainland to bless them. He praised the charity of the islanders, calling it evidence of the true Italy, as he put it. Then the weather threatened to turn bad again. Amid fears that a storm could slide the wreck over the edge, divers tried to stabilize it with ropes. But as the hull continued to sink, the mission was interrupted. 1 week after the disaster, rescuers said they'd not entirely given up hope of finding more survivors. This diver explained that although the water temperature was 14 or 15 degrees Celsius, an air pocket in the ship could be considerably warmer. Officials have said they'll search the entire ship. But a short while later, on Saturday, another body was recovered from the wreck of the Costa Concordia. The rescuers know it's a race against time.